art, and I make dope portraits for dope people. Mind you, living in New York, you have a lot of noise throughout the
These
day.
two up here.
Actually, we're a part of a painting series called Las Frutas that I did. Inquiring about this space and just the studios in general, and was told like, oh, unfortunately, like the only studios we have left are like the big studios. Um, and I kept saying like, that's fine, I want Studio 6. And they're like, well, we have other studios, like we can give you the prices for them. I'm like, that's fine, but I want Studio 6. And so, they gave me the square footage of each place, they gave me the prices, and let's just say, comparing prices here compared to prices back in New York, it's a big, great difference, especially for me. Basically was cheaper than my apartment and bigger than the apartment I was living in New York. So it was a no-brainer. And so when I got the space, I wanted it to feel kind of like the house that I grew up in a little bit. And I remember there being just random antiques that were in the house. My mom didn't own a single modern piece of furniture. It was only like the appliances that the house came with. Because for some reason there was a stove in the basement, but we don't question it. But antiques were kind of always something that resonated with me. It was always in my childhood. I remember my mom going to antique stores with me as a kid, and I would run around and actually grab the paintings that I saw. I actually have a picture of me very young, just clinging on to this painting, and looking back at it now, I'm just like, I knew I knew where I was gonna be in life. That happens. But yeah, it's definitely a callback to my younger self, and I think even so, as you grow in life, your core of who you are still is the same. Your perspective of life changes, but I think who you are just kind of remains the same as this beautiful essence. But that was a long rant of who I was and how I grew up, but I hope you enjoyed that.
This one is actually what started the entire series. And she's simply called Maracuya, and that just means passion fruit. And with her, I had actually done a very small drawing. And anytime I do drawings, like I kind of mentioned before, I do this whole thing where I block off all the different shadows and highlights that are going to be in it. And eventually, as I progress through my work, I will blend them all in together. But I had stepped away um, for a few days and had came back to the drawing and saw all these really cool contour lines that I had created on her face, and just really fell in love with that style. Um, and I had all these kind of tiny lines within certain sections for me to know what was going to be darker and what was going to be lighter, instead of just having shapes and not knowing which ones were the highlights and which ones were the shadows. Um, and so I wanted to kind of keep that in progress kind of look for me anyways. Or at least I know just with my process in general, that was the first step, you know? Um, and kind of just keep that in the final rendition of the painting and kind of just see where it went. Um, and so that's why she's in black and white as well, because I usually put down all my tones in a monochromatic palette and then work off colors after that. But like I said, I really kind of wanted to leave her just as that kind of window into how I approach my work. Um, and this painting also too was me just getting back into painting. So it was really just to show off my process in a way. And then you have these passion fruits that are in the background. Um, and this one I was smart about. This one I did do all in oil. Um, but what I really enjoyed about it, it was the first time I was doing any pattern work. So I was creating this pattern for the first time with this fruit that I absolutely love, and doing these really, really tiny seeds. um, but it was fun. It was also my first time doing like curls and braid with paint. Um, but I just really enjoy looking at it and kind of seeing my brain work in a sense. And you can actually kind of see that style too with the contour lines, just a little bit more um, different because now like the color is applied. This is actually would have been like the second step of how I approach my work, where I start laying out all of the flat colors. But also really enjoyed that kind of look too, and putting it against more completed elements, especially with the background and the hair and the clothing as well. And this one is called Upi Boni, which is Creole for you better not. And it's not as in Bantu nuts. Um, and then kind of same idea here with all the going really in with all the seeds. I love adding these unnecessary, I guess, details. Um, but I really enjoy concentrating on the tinier things within painting. It kind of gives me this sense of calmness and really gets me into the flow of my creative process. So you can kind of see um, with the papayas too, there's all these little dots um, in things to kind of represent more like divots within the fruit. Um, and then each seed in the papaya is all like individually drawn out to give that illusion of texture against smoother fruit. And then this series here, they're all actually individual panels, but when you put them together, it becomes a triptych. And no matter how you arrange them, they're always going to connect with this green line. And I really wanted it to be um, kind of a rendition of see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, and how sometimes you can be seen as the evil. And once you're painted in that light, no one wants your side of the story because they've already made up their mind, or it's already been spoken for from the opposite side. So all of these people kind of connected in that way, but they still had their own individual experiences. So it was important for me to have them be united, but still stand strong on their own. So that's why you can kind of see in each one their particular like thing that's not being spoken of or heard or seen is only partially covered because it's allowing you to understand their part of the story. And then the only difference with this one from the other paintings in the series is that I added this kind of splatter texture to all of them. You can see it the best in the middle panel here. Um, I wanted to kind of add more texture and more of kind of like a grit to it versus the kind of matte smooth background that you saw in the other ones. But that is the series.
All originals, prints, and more can be found on my website at www.lepouf-art.com. If you want to see my artistic journey, feel free to follow me on Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter at lepouf_art.